Hey friends, welcome back. So I just had to hop on and record this thought because I just saw a post on Instagram or a reel of someone who is diagnosed with PMDD and sharing about just how difficult it was for them to start taking an SSRI, an antidepressant, to help with their symptoms, and just the beliefs and the shame and the feeling of failure and all of the things that came with feeling like they had to take that option. And this brought up so much for me because I fell into the same category of just being like, I am a root cause approach. Like, this is true for me in every area of my life. I'm not like a brush things under the rug type of person. And honestly, being highly sensitive, being neurospicy, I think my nervous system genuinely doesn't really let me do that. I can't hide from problems very long before they become forefront. You have to deal with this in order to continue moving through with life. So the thought of taking medications that weren't actually treating root cause, that were, a Band-Aid, was very much against my beliefs and my values. And a lot of that came from my childhood. I grew up in a very religious household that was very much like prayer first, medicine later. And there's some ways that that served me. I think there's value in this trust that your body has mechanisms in place to heal itself, right? We don't need to immediately take a Tylenol because we have a fever, or immediately take something for a headache, because sometimes what our body's actually telling us is we need rest, we need fluids, we need sleep, and creating space for that is what our body needs to heal. However, the ways that that belief and that sort of mindset from a young age, ways that that didn't serve me, was that it really villainized taking medication, right? That felt weak. It felt like I had failed in some way, that I would need that. And so I was resistant to it. And also at the time when I was even considering it, I was in the window of starting to have kids. And so this idea of being on medication or even testing it out while pregnant and breastfeeding and all the things just added another layer to this fear around taking these medicines. And I will say I did try, I was on the pill for a while. It wasn't even really intended to treat PMDD. I was on it for contraceptive purposes, and have had people ask me were you better? And I'm like, I can answer that. Definitely no, I wasn't better. But was it worse? I don't know. I had really bad months, not on it. I had really bad months on it. And so I don't think it necessarily made it worse. But when I look back at my process to treat the root cause, to heal my body physically, to do the deeper inner work, the shadow work, the things that actually led me to be PMDD free, and to feel like that wasn't controlling my life, that it wasn't the only lens that I was viewing everything through. When I look at that process, I see how much a root cause approach, and feeling like that is the choice I made. And so that's the route I have to stick with, and almost having it be you have to pick a side. You either go traditional Western medicine and you take medication and you go that route, or you choose holistic and you do all of these other things, but that they're mutually exclusive choices. And this really came, from this strong, okay, I have to treat the root cause. That these other things have no value because it's a Band-Aid. But I think it's so important to recognize that while there may be some truth in it, that this is not curing any underlying things that contribute to the symptoms, to dismiss it because of that, to villainize it because of that, to say that it has no value, all of those things just create so much shame. And that just, that just breaks my heart. There's so many places in women's health, and PMDD is hard enough without feeling shamed for any choice that you make. And that's why as a coach, as a menstrual cycle coach supporting women through this process, I don't lead from a root cause first approach. because I think that that puts us in a lane that says, like, okay, then we have to do all of the holistic things, we have to do all of this process, which are definitely like, all of that can be brought in. I don't follow that same process to the T that I did, because I look back and I'm like, there's so many things that if I had done them differently, if I had approached it differently, my experience would have been so much more easeful, and the process of healing could have been so much more gentle, not only on me and my expectations and the narrative that I was telling myself about my capacity and all of those things, but also could have been so much more gentle on the community around me, on my husband, with my kids. Like, the things that my husband and I have been working through over the past few years, since I've had like more relief from symptoms in our relationship, like the healing that we've been having to go through has been very uncomfortable and not very fun, but it's been a necessary thing for us in our relationship. But a lot of those things came up because of essentially the damage that was done during the hardcore PMDD years. And that is not to say that it was all my fault or I was the only one to blame in this dynamic. Like, that's been a big process for both of us, is to identify like the ways that we both contributed to that dynamic, the ways that we both benefited from the dynamic, and choosing to heal and forgive, choosing to do things differently, choosing to face all of that and uncover it and all the things. But I look back, and if I had chosen a gentler approach, like, the amount of healing there would have been less. And when I look back at that, at the time that I was considering going on antidepressants, what I wasn't seeing in the narrative happening at the time was this idea that this can be a tool as part of a holistic approach to healing. I genuinely felt that choosing antidepressants as this sort of Band-Aid solution, this lifelong solution, whatever, that may or may not actually help me, because different people have different responses on it, like, that whole journey felt so incongruent with my values of actually tuning in and healing like root causes. And so I rejected it like very quickly, and I think in a lot of ways like took the harder route. But when I look back, what I wish a doctor or a holistic practitioner, anyone that I had spoken to about my symptoms, had told me was that there's a way to integrate medication and a root cause approach. That there's a way to still continue to do that deeper work, but stop the bleeding. Because we know that Band-Aids don't actually heal our bodies, but we also know that if we're just free bleeding, it's harder for our body to do the healing, right? When we put that Band-Aid on, when we stop the bleeding, we actually support our body in doing the real work, the deeper work, and all of the things. And I wish I had known that, because if I had had someone giving me that perspective, that these are not mutually exclusive or contradictory value systems, they're not contradictory approaches, but all of this gets to be intertwined. And I could have seen an antidepressant as a bridge. Like, how does this support me in lowering the burden of my symptoms enough that it becomes easier to do the things that I know are going to support my body, like the diet and the movement and the shadow work and inner child work and all of these other things. Like, it doesn't have to be so hard. And I think we're so used to the experience being hard, we're used to healing being hard, that we just accept that if it's hard, we're doing something right. And that if we take the easy out, in quotes, or the Band-Aid solution, in quotes here, that we are failing, that we couldn't hack it, that we, didn't have the capacity, or we were weak in some way for not taking the hard path. But healing doesn't have to be so hard. And that's why in my practice, I lead with an embodiment first approach. Because when we're starting the conversation from a place of connection to self, of tuning into what the body has to tell us, valuing ourselves, and there's something else that wants to come through here. When we are coming from this place of loving ourselves enough to truly take care of ourselves, to trust that our body is giving us the information on where our capacity is, when we're connected enough to how safe we feel in our body and to value safety, then when we actually decide, what does my body need right now? What's the current step of my healing process right now? We don't no longer have to deal in black and white. We get to say what's supportive, what's expansive. Does taking an antidepressant bring like so much relief that I'm actually able to be more present and more safe in my body and in my environment and with my community, that I'm now able to receive more of the support that's being offered? Is my capacity to take care of myself increasing so that I'm actually eating enough, that I'm actually drinking enough, that I'm actually hearing my body ask for movement and I'm listening and I'm doing it? Because these things don't have to be one or the other. And so it's just a really beautiful invitation to release the shame around it. Because the reality is, like, you get to choose. You get to choose if you want to go all in holistic and you're just like, I'm going to do it until it works. I'm going to keep trying things until it works. You get to choose if you take medication along with that. If you take medication and say, hey, I feel great, this is good enough for me, I'm done. I'm done working on it. You can choose to stop healing. You can choose to take a break from healing. All of that is accessible to you. And when we lead from this embodiment first approach, when we connect back to our bodies, we can tune into, when is it time for us to take a break? When are things good enough? When are other priorities rising to the top? There's also a way that our body shows us that we have capacity to take a break from this. We have capacity to invite something else into focus. And recognizing that whatever it is that is our focus, all of these things are working together towards healing. If you feel a pull to work on your relationship, doing relational work is going to build safety and connection in your body that helps your body to heal. When you connect to yourself, that expands your capacity to connect to other people and be more available in your romantic relationships, in friendships, in family relationships. When you learn to set boundaries for yourself, you set boundaries in other places, like wherever it is that you're feeling drawn to work and be present in your life, like all of these things are connected. And so the biggest value for me in creating safe spaces for women with PMDD, for menstruators with PMDD, and these like heavy cycle experiences is to create safety, is to release. So one of my biggest values in this work, in creating safe spaces for people with PMDD and PME, is to release shame, to release the concept that there's a right way and there's a wrong way to do this. Because I think another part of the conversation that gets skipped over a lot is that getting sick, struggling with mental illness, falling apart, these are a privilege. And not everyone has access to the financial and time resources to create the space to just fall apart. And so there's genuinely no shame in using medication as a support to help you keep showing up and create a more easeful process for you to have space, to create space for yourself, to do the other work. And just like across the board, eliminating shame, because the shame crops up in so many ways. So I just want to invite you to consider where shame is cropping up in your PMDD journey. Where are you shaming yourself? Where are you feeling judgment from others, whether internalized or externally, like receiving those messages? And reflect on those beliefs and weigh those beliefs with what your body is asking for and needing from you. And if you feel like you're in a place where you're just like, I don't know, I can't get a read on what my body needs, I'm so overwhelmed, and you want support in cutting through the noise, that's what I'm here to support you with. And so you can come be a part of the monthly PMDD circle that I run every month called Willow, just a free space to just come and be supported and be in a safe place with other people going through similar experiences. Or you can reach out to work one-on-one or sign up for a waitlist if you want a group and communal experience that will be coming next year. There's so many ways to get connected, and there's so much support that's available, and there's no shame in any of it. What would be a shame is for you to suffer for no reason. Not that there's no reason, not that it's all in your head, but to suffer when you don't have to. What would be a true shame would be for you to be in this place where you're questioning whether your life is worth it, questioning the value of your existence, instead of taking these tools and the support that is here and available to help hold you and help bring you back to yourself and to your body and to this place of inherent value and worth.